Hello, friends. Welcome back to Pull Up Trey. Back from our feud, we realized no one wins when the family feud. I am Trey. This is Samson. How are you doing, brother?
I feel good. It's always good to make up after beef, to
Of course.
to make sure. Yeah, no one wins when the family feuds. Correct, correct. The Jays are also in a better spot than they were when we weren't like when we took that little break. That also meant that the Jays snapped off like 5 losses in a
Yep.
row. They clearly need us. They just lost a game before we started recording. We have to record. Um, like we went to a game together and they won. We're gonna
Yeah.
go to a game together next week, provided that everybody gives timely responses for tickets, and and they're probably gonna win that one too. We got to get Gossman a W. But the people are here for basketball talk. We're good, everyone. We're all pleased and everything. There's some stuff going around about the Raptors. Now, this isn't the most rumor-esque podcast. That isn't typically where we make our living. It's usually a little bit more in depth. But I got to tell you, we're in the dog days. Rumors are abound, and we will be taking things from the playoffs and talking about that. But first thing I want to talk about Masai Ujiri, for what must be the eighth time, is linked to the Washington Wizards. Now, I kind of want to pick apart what's been happening here. First things first, though. What are your thoughts on Masai plus Washington for the eighth time?
I think it's a non-story. Um, Masai has some sort of ownership piece with the Raptors. He's been pretty entrenched in what he was doing, and you don't make those type of statements like in an end of year presser if you aren't committed to being at the team long term. And the type of moves that they I guess didn't make at the deadline would suggest that he plans on being here for a long time. So I think it's a non-story.
So I wanted to use this. I also think it's a non-story for what it's worth. I wanted to use this as an opportunity to segue into Masai's decision making, the type
Mhm.
of team he's built, what type of role you think he plays, because this is something I like to get opinions on. Is there is Bobby the guy making decisions? What do you think? I love asking fans this question. I love asking my friends this question.
I would say like Masai's like Logan Roy. Like he's not doing the meticulous day to day stuff, but he'll look at something like, oh, this is stupid. Let's not do this, or let's do this at the end, and gives like a final say. I don't think probably not like from like since like really Bobby has been stamped over the last few years. I don't think he's probably doing the day to day operations like he probably was say like 2014, 2015. But that's all assumption.
This is something that in the NBA particularly, there are other teams in the league which I have friends who are professionals with other teams on staff around the league, and you would be surprised how titles are much more meaningful to public than they are to workflow. And I think that the Raptors also have a little bit of that going on. Titles are for public perception. The actual work that gets done when you drop a trade, it's not Masai crafting it, checking all the cap permutations, all that kind of stuff. It's been Bobby for some time. It's still Bobby. Um, there's the big red button that Masai has, though, I would say. And the big red button, I don't think it's been pushed. Do you think they've had anything that's been like crazy over the past couple of years, or has it been they've been failing in the smaller areas and it's culminated in this, I guess, larger failing at scale?
I would say they're all it's accumulation of like small bad moves that have put us in the situation. But
Death by a thousand cuts is
if
the
I were
term.
to say like there was a button push, I guess like the deadline and trading for Jakob, that's like a concerted organizational decision where everyone needs to be on the same page before trading away your pick.
Here's a fun one. We talked about what we want to pay Pirtle, Trent,
Yeah.
Fred. We negotiated for Fred.
Oh, I heard about it. Trust me.
We both did from separate
Yeah.
from separate groups, which is probably the best as far as engagement. I think
Yeah.
we made it. Um, Gary, rumors are this guy. Maybe the Raptors are happy to let him walk. Maybe the Raptors they get a situation where they can negotiate him pretty far down from where he was, or maybe he takes that player option. Do you have a preference? Order them.
I think Gary is very dependent upon like what happens with the core. If you break up the core, like either one of Fred and Pascal, then signing Gary makes more sense from a asset management perspective. But if you're deciding I'm going to double down on the Pascal Scotty sort of timeline, then letting him walk or turning him into a player that maybe fits a bit better makes more sense for me typically. Just the new CBA rules are going to incentivize teams to be more malleable with how they utilize their salary. And then just also there isn't for such a large salary spot to have someone who probably can't start for your team is kind of a sunk cost, I would say.
It seems like the sunk cost fallacy. I actually avoided using that term. I really wanted to use it in that piece I wrote
Yeah.
About Gary, kind of where the market is at, what it might dictate for him, and what he succeeded and failed at this past season. A bit of insight from the paywall part of that piece. I have slowly, since I think November, been asking friends in the NBA, friends who cover the NBA, fans, everybody about how much they'd be willing to pay Gary Trent Jr. Now, keep in mind, my friends are not like Masai Ujiri, Bobby Webster, so grain of salt, but nobody said they were willing to go north of 20 as far as professionals in the league. Fans, there were some people who wanted to go north of 20. I haven't asked in a little bit regarding that. Are you comfortable going north of 20?
No,
No.
no chance in hell. For a player of that, when you look at, especially like watching the playoffs, you need players, especially if you're going to pay for that salary spot, who are going to be able to defend at a high level to really get minutes. Shot making, I think in today's NBA just isn't enough. You're seeing it with guys like Jordan Poole, although he's much higher playing than where Gary is still having a hard time like managing minutes because he can't play defense. And Gary is probably a worse defender and a worse shot maker. So it's tough.
That's kind of that's the tough part, is that to make the most of Gary on the floor, you're going to want to leverage his shot making a ton.
Yeah.
Not only like for him to get the amount of shots he needs, he has to be one of the most talented shot makers on the floor. That was true, and if he comes back, will be true in Toronto, but isn't true a lot of other places in the NBA.
Yeah.
He seems like, looking at his game, a luxury piece, or maybe a guy who helps Lonnie Walker, for example, who is a different player, but kind of occupied the end of the Lakers bench.
Mm-hmm.
He comes in, shot making, helps swing, and a playoff game. That's a big deal. That's also something that Gary is capable of. However, he's not strong enough in other areas, be it playmaking, ball handling, defense, to justify always being out there. We saw that happen during the end of the season where he became more of a player who, if you were, a Raptor fan, you saw him being used as a guy like, if he's hot, let it ride. But he's not guaranteed between 28. He's not guaranteed to go north of 30 minutes every night anymore like he was for a long time, because the Raptors found an identity in defense and he wasn't really hacking it. And also there was shooting. OG in particular, shooting the ball well, changed the way that all worked.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what's going to happen. It's significantly more likely now that he takes the player option, though. But I don't know if he sees a route to a bunch of minutes with the Rap. Like, he'll have minutes, of course, if he comes back, but a bunch of minutes so that he can build up that resume, that basketball reference stat page of like, okay, now I can get paid. Because for all intents and purposes, the Raptors are still going to run back that 5 until further notice. I don't know what Gary's camp is hearing. I don't know what they're trying to maneuver, but it's tough to envision him getting a place on the Raptors where he's able to make a ton more money. And that's obviously what he wants. And that's what he should want, for the record. Earn as much as you can. It's also tough to see that coming from other teams around the league who, if they have the cap space, a lot of them are younger teams who have wings or guards who want as many shots and touches as possible, and they'd rather keep their cap sheet clean than have Gary come and take those possessions. It's tough. What's the number you're comfortable at?
Probably like, I think when we negotiated, it was somewhere, I think I said 18 or 19 a year. like around that range. Even then, to me, I think you probably would want to utilize that in a player that's going to be a rotation player in your playoff team. But for Gary and it's like the composition of the team, paying him 18 is fine because he's going to be put in a position where his shot making is allowed to have as much leverage and purpose on any team, maybe across the league, just because like we are so like we just lack shooting, and we anyone on the team that can shoot is going to try to find minutes. Malachi Flynn hasn't been the shooter that he's was projected to be coming out the league, but the mere thought of him reigniting that gives him minutes at times. Even
That's you don't think Gary would be a rotation player in the playoffs for the Raptors?
for the Raptors, yes, but we were in a playoff team. So. Think about it. I don't think he plays on the Lakers. Like Malik Beasley has a similar skill set. He can play.
Yeah, we mentioned this conversation the last time we talked about it, is like on a contender or like a top 6 team in a conference.
Yeah,
is Gary getting bumped? It's tough to imagine him not getting bumped, and that's he's in the realm of the guys like Eric Gordon or Jordan Clarkson or Norman Powell, and it's those guys. As I wrote, they've all had better seasons under their belt than Gary has. They've reached higher highs, and so we'll see what happens with Gary. It's very interesting. Part of that usage, if he comes back, is going to be determined by the Raptors coach, of course. Big news on that end as far as discourse. Big news in actuality, I don't think so. I'll say it right here. I don't think JJ Redick is going to be the Raptors coach. It is, however, fun that the spectacle, JJ Redick podcast listener, this one, by the way, it is fun to think about the spectacle or to discuss the spectacle of JJ just showing up and being like, yeah, I can coach. And the Raptors being like, sure, we're looking at everybody. We haven't talked about Becky Hammon, really. We haven't talked about JJ Redick. We talked about Jerry Stackhouse for a smidge, but he also was on Twitter saying, I'm not leaving. Maybe like Jordan Belfort, But I'm curious, where do you sit? Where do you sit on the JJ Redick, first of all?
I think with JJ, I think they were probably, if I were to guess, they were probably taken aback that Imy didn't want the job. And now they're widespread across the board trying to uncover all stones, trying to figure out who is going to be the coach. For me, I don't think honestly there isn't an option where I go into the situation being mad who the coach is. Although,
would you be upset with an internal hire?
I take it back. You're right. I'd be mad. Yeah, I'd be mad. If it's Adrian Griffin, I'd probably be mad. But
you would think it would be more of a continuation of Nurse's style, legacy, etc.
Exactly. Yeah, I would say that. But in terms of like someone with no coaching experience, it hasn't really worked out other than really Steve Kerr. But Steve Kerr was in an organization for years and helped build the Suns before then. So you can even say that scenario helped parlay his coaching. So I don't think it's a real thing, but I do think it's just to show everyone like how early they are in the process, and they don't have an idea of who the coach is really going to be of as of right now.
That as I've said before, I'm not getting a ton on my end. I don't know who the next coach is going to be. I believe it was Michael Grange who first reported it, and then everybody was like, "This isn't true," and then Woj was like, hey, JJ Redick interviewed. Everyone's like, hey, maybe this is true, So shout out to Michael for figuring that one out before Woj. Didn't get any of the credit, really. The thing is, I would probably be pretty miffed. Sorry, JJ, if you're listening. If JJ was the coach.
Yeah.
It's tough to imagine JJ getting the buy-in necessary because that is the biggest thing here. I'll use something that NBA on ESPN posted to try and gas up LeBron James' Galaxy brain. So what they did was years before, in 2018, the Warriors ran a hammer play, and that, by the way, the hammer play is named after Darvin Ham. This was covered years ago by the Bouncing Around podcast. all that stuff. So anyway, and it worked against LeBron's team at the time. Here's the thing. A lot of teams run hammer, like a lot.
Yeah.
And they run it more than once a game. And not only that, it's such a common action and so easy that you can interlay it in other set actions as a counter. They overplay the handoff, the guy goes down, you run a hammer action on the weak side. It just so happens that that's what the Golden State Warriors did. The Lakers were switching every single action. They switch at the handoff. They also switch the hammer screen and action in the corner. They end up turning the ball over. Now, this was made out to be that LeBron remembered a play from 5 years ago and blew it up. Here's the thing. NBA playbooks are super similar. NBA offenses have a lot of overlap, and every single coach, from the sixth guy on the bench to the first guy on the bench to the future Hall of Fame coaches, they all have a lot of the same info. They all call a lot of the same things. The book is out at the NBA level. The book is out. You need a guy or girl that the players like, respect, and will get buy-in from. And you also need a coach who's going to, in some cases, emphasize the right players. As far as having a guy who's like a whiz with the playbook, all that kind of stuff, sure. But James Borrego isn't around anymore, and he was, the whiz kid.
Yeah.
This is why coaching is tough to critique, and also very difficult to project. Nobody has any idea because we can't see these guys hang out. Like Nick Nurse and Kawhi Leonard, what was the feedback? Kawhi was like, he seems like he likes basketball. Nick was like, he also seems like he likes basketball. We're playing basketball, everybody. But nobody knows anything.
Yeah.
Nobody has a clue. And that's just, it's very tough to project. Speaking of, any update on the Vanderbilt Stackhouse situation? Have you been paying attention to it at all?
Our friend Nabil, who's been on this pod before, has been updating us on the lines daily.
Agent Nabil, yes.
So I've seen I believe he's first or second. I think Becky Hammon is first. He's second.
She's first now?
Yeah, she's first now. We got a last update.
Bob's your uncle.
Yeah. I would just say, overall with coaches, the only thing I actually care about is what is their vision with Scotty and how they plan on utilizing him in the future. Sort of like what Caitlin said last week on your guys' pod without me. But
right.
But yeah, I did see very interestingly, David Adelman got an interview, and that would be a hire that I'd be really happy about. I wonder
how come?
Because the way that they utilize Jokic, and obviously Adelman is famous, his father, Rick Adelman's famous for the corner offense, which the Raptors use with Marc Gasol quite frequently. I wonder, do you parlay that with Scotty, get shooting around him, and that's how you ignite his way to stardom? That seems like the most, on the most surface layer, on the most surface level, that's the way to operate around him and make it work. So I think that's at least that indication would be this is what their priority is. This is what they're looking for.
Good. I'm glad. That's it. That's insightful. I was wondering why you were mentioning the corner offense earlier today. I was like, I was out for my walk doing my thing. I look at my phone. You're like, corner offense, please bring it to Toronto. And I was like, what? He's talking about corner offense. I wonder what was the impetus for this. And
do you think Scotty can market was on a different tier, and you saw how that ignited the Raptors, especially from the 3-point line and the looks that they got? Do you think Scotty can operate that offense in a similar fashion, or if not, even better than Mark did?
Raptors, Bucks, DeMar DeRozan, he helped lead them. They beat Giannis.
Yes.
You'll remember Matthew Dellavedova and Chris Middleton. They ran a lot of corner offense with Delly as the hub, and they scored playoff points. Scotty can run the corner offense. Yes, I'm certain of it. The most important aspect, though, is having guys who can run off of Scotty.
Yeah.
And that is where it maybe gets a little bit more murky because like if you want to pull the guys out to create a lot of the advantages on corner offense, you got to be able to shoot it. And if it's Pascal, they might be shooting the gap. There might not be much happening. If it's Fred and the shot comes back, if it's some Gary stuff, talking about Caitlin where she mentioned Scotty being used in the Sabonis role, he's got magnet eyes for Gary. How do I initiate this handoff with Gary? How do I work with Gary in an empty side, or maybe there's a guy in the corner, something like that. Not that that matters for Gary because he's not passing it, but how do you make that work?
Yeah,
that's stuff I wonder about. But certainly, the right guys on the floor, Scotty could make a killing in the corner offense. Certainly, even Adelman comes or not, I hope that's a piece of it. I hope that they stack options like that more often this upcoming season than they did in the last, because this is something you and I have talked about at length, is like the Raptors do kind of just throw Scotty out there, figure it out. And he has his limitations for sure, but you and I have long been kind of impressed with, it's not easy to figure out how to impact the game if you don't shoot the ball, because shooting is so intuitive. The ball comes to you. If you're a good shooter, you shoot it. If you're a guy who is a cutter, a finisher, a great passer, who is seeing different defense thrown at him, it's not as obvious. And he figures it out. So just more stuff for Scotty, definitely, with the coaches. I'll still keep saying it. Becky Hammon. I don't, obviously the thing that has to happen, the players have to buy in.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have any precedent as a head coach being a woman in the NBA. It's not about whether the fans accept it. It's about whether the players in the locker room accept it. I hope that the guys on Toronto's team would. I hope that they would view it as merits. I hope that they wouldn't disrespect based on gender. I hope they wouldn't carry any of that stuff. And I hope that Becky Hammon could get hired by the Raptors, pave that way to a future where women and men can both coach at the highest level in basketball. That being said, Becky, she gets paid way more than WNBA coaches. She just coached the championship team. They probably got better, the Aces. And who knows, man? It's pretty cushy.
The
NBA is the top of the top, but the WNBA is really good basketball. I'm going to be covering the game in Toronto. It's really good basketball, and she gets a mill. The average salary in the WNBA for coaches is like under $200K for sure. Becky got $1 million. She got the bag, so we'll see what happens. But it's I would like to cover it. I'd like to see Becky Hammon navigate it at the NBA level. But as far as coaches, you and I will be doing far more talking about it after it happens. And also, it'll be way more... Actually, let's talk about something quick. So, Indu tweeted about this because of everybody. I know you saw this tweet as well. She tweeted about this because all the Bucks players were saying, Budenholzer, my guy, I can't believe you're gone. What happened? I'll miss you. And not a peep.
No, not a sound.
For Nick Nurse, the championship coach.
Yeah.
Excommunicado. He's gone. Nobody has said a thing. What does that say to you? I'm curious.
It kind of just reinforces a lot of what was said from Masai, and also everything that's been reported. He's the greatest coach in Raptor history. He's been here for 10 years. Both Pascal and Fred he's been in their lives their entire career. So it's for them not to say anything is probably very telling. And also just Masai letting out that Nick said, good luck with these dudes in sort of a passive-aggressive way. At least
he didn't. No, he didn't.
That's maybe it's the way he said it.
Wait. Okay, so you watched the video.
I did.
So this is funny.
Yeah.
This is like Rorschach test, right? So I was there.
Yes.
You watched the video. There's no difference between the two things.
Yeah.
We're basically seeing the exact same thing. When you hear it, you think it's good luck with those guys. And when I hear it, I think, good luck with those guys. Why do you think this is?
Well, I think it also just the stuff that was reinforced through the entire year that Masai is saying, these guys aren't happy. These guys are playing selfish. And all the stuff leaking out, and Nurse particularly leaking out that maybe I'm not happy. Maybe I want to leave. So it seems like there was some sort of bad blood, especially if it was being reported like management was also trying to force minutes for guys onto him. I don't think things were left off on like the best foot.
So I'm not going to make we have a different opinion of how that went, but that's okay. The one thing we don't have a different opinion on is I talked with Blake after the Raptors lost the play-in game. We did the reaction podcast. We talked about the future, and Blake asked me, do you think Nick is back? I say no, Nick is gone. Yeah. I felt very strongly about that. It was true. And I also mentioned before he got fired that after the exit interviews, when Pascal is like, Nick is the best. I love Nick. And you get quotes from OG that's like, I love Nick Nurse. He's like, and all the players in this monotone, it's Nick Nurse. He's great. And then when he's fired, like when there's no impetus for them to answer, nobody has anything to say. Maybe July 9th, someone will come onto Twitter for the first time and be like, see you, Nick. Or if he gets hired by the Bucks or something, maybe one of the players says, this guy's so great, good luck. But it's been radio silence for the players he coached, and a lot of them for a long time as an assistant to a head coach. I feel like if Earl Watson got hired as an assistant coach on with Phoenix next year, Pascal would tweet about it 4 seconds after the news comes out.
Yeah, it's rough because it's not that some of these players have been inactive off Twitter. Pascal congratulated Joel Embiid yesterday. So
Pascal's doing like a whole ad thing for Red Bull. Like he's doing a rollout. Fred is tweeting cryptic stuff too.
Yeah.
And then it seems like Fred tweeted something bad happened to him, and then everyone in the comments is saying like, welcome to China. Guys, please, a little seriousness from the fan base. I beg of you. But yeah, the point being, we haven't heard anything about Nick. We're going to hear some stuff over the summer because of Team Canada. Maybe we'll get some stuff at Summer League, which I think I'll be there. And maybe Trey will be there too. A Pull-Up Trey podcast from the top of Caesar's Palace, it would hit.
Wow.
That's what we need. Of course, like that would be your hotel room. Mine would be some dingy little thing.
You're lying to the people. You already got the MGM filled out, whole room to yourself, whole floor actually.
Okay, so the playoffs are going on.
Yeah.
Jokic and Booker, for most people, that's like special. A lot of people are like, wow, I can't believe the heights that have been reached. The Lakers are up 3-1 on the Warriors. AD's defense has been tremendous. The buy-in from the guards to really trying to race the top half of the floor for Steph has been super impressive. There's a bunch of stuff happening. Do these playoffs, and I love asking this question, do they make you dream or think of a different type of Raptors team? Does it help change your vision of what type of team you should try and build going forward?
Change, no, but it reinforces a lot of the thoughts that I had in the playoffs. Like,
you're saying I've been new. That's it.
Been the guy, but in the playoffs, what every team is focusing on is taking away shots from the rim, not giving up easy 3-pointers. The most available shot and the shot that everybody is willing to give up is that pull-up mid-range jumper. And you're seeing the players that are having the most success are the ones that can execute those that actual shot. Devin Booker is killing everyone simply because the Nuggets don't have the resources to take that off. He's killing them from that range. You saw Joel Embiid yesterday. They let Al Horford said you can shoot 20 of these shots. He hit all of those shots. Guys like Kevin Durant. Those type of players.
Guys like Jokic too. Jokic is in that in-between, man. It looks different, but it's from similar spots, and the outcome is the same. High efficiency buckets.
Yeah. So I think overall, pull-up shooting is just super important. And then also from the defensive end, like Anthony Davis is probably having one of the best defensive playoff performances I've probably seen, probably since Tim Duncan. And having rim protection changes everything for you defensively. It makes players like D'Angelo Russell viable defensively because all they have to do is chase. The creating more chaos than what we were doing last year as a Raptors team, you need to perform at the highest percentile of execution in order for it to work. Whereas a team like the Lakers can say, we can put D'Angelo Russell on Klay Thompson because if he runs off, Anthony Davis is going to block a shot. So I just think the Raptors, they've addressed that with Jakob Poeltl. He's one of the better ones in the league. They have not addressed the pull-up shooting stuff, and that's what I'm hoping going into the summer that becomes a lot more viable, especially to help Scottie grow as a player too.
It's the Raptors are not going to be ready next season.
I didn't think so.
Sorry to friend of the podcast, Timbo, but they're not built for war in that way. Yeah. In some ways, they are built for war. There are some aspects of the Raptors' ethos that you can see firmly in, playoff basketball. The try-hard stuff, the Raptors have been there.
Yeah.
But they've been doing it for a lot more games than other teams, and they still haven't been winning that often. That's the tough part. The point you make about Davis and being able to send guys downhill, it shrinks the floor, and it makes the responsibility of the big man way more. But if you have a really great big, then you can pressure a lot of actions, and you can kind of eliminate a lot of the floor and a lot of the danger, especially for teams like Boston and Golden State. The two teams that were in the finals last year, both down, right?
Yep.
3, and what is the common denominator there? Really fantastic big man defense, of course. And then for the 76ers, the shot making from any of Harden, Maxey, or Embiid, nuts, tremendous, really, really great. And then on the other side, the Warriors are a more limited defensive team in some sense because they don't have that same, like they're more versatile. They can go a lot of different ways, but they haven't found that one thing that makes them super successful. And, like the Lakers, I've said D'Angelo Russell is underrated for some time. Some games he's going to give you 4 points on 1 of 9 shooting. Some games he's going to shoot 15 times and give you like 23, 24 and great reads out of the pick and roll. That's great. Austin Reeves struggled for a while, still finding his way as a ball handler. LeBron, Anthony Davis. Like, there's enough guys who can put the ball down that when they create an advantage, they're going to find better shots. And so the Raptors need more diversity in their ball handlers. They need more pull-up shooting. And they're set on defense.
Yep.
They will be a good defense next year. It's just there's too many good players, provided that something changes, of course. But I'm also of the mind that this playoffs has reinforced more than it has changed what I think. To your point about getting to the rim, I can't remember exactly what the percentages were, but during the regular season, I think it's around 33, 34% of shots were coming like at the rim in the paint.
Yep.
And then that goes down by around 5-6% in the first round. And then that goes down between 4 or 5% the next round. Like, the rim pressure is slowly being siphoned away because teams with that extra effort, that extra incentivization, they're more willing to like play in the gaps, take that step over, move the ball. And since it's the playoffs, they're going to do all of this with hyperactivity and the buy-in. Yeah. They're going to make sure that rotation is made. You have to reach the breaking point. And the good teams reach the breaking point, bust through it, finish at the rim, get to a soft spot, hit a pull-up jumper, run really great actions where sometimes in all of the wacky chaos that's going on, a pin-in screen hits a guy and he just gets killed on it. You have a wide open 3 and they have a good shooter to hit that. The Raptors aren't there, but hopefully they continue to build with good players and more spacing. God, is it important, because you just need room to play and your best players need that too. Otherwise, it's just not going to cut it, man. Not at all. Any basketball stuff you want to talk about before we talk about our precious Blue Jays?
The Blue Jays. I think the only thing I want to take away, I think heading into the playoffs, I thought going into it that the Stars were going to win a lot of these games, and they always do. But I think what we've seen from every series is that every game it's a role player swinging it, and it's usually that role player that has a mini set skill of being a ball handler and operating out of certain actions. The Lakers have 4 or 5 of those guys. You saw last series, Poole was able to swing games. Even on Phoenix with Booker and Durant.
Even with Bruce Brown as well.
Yeah.
Like he's huge game last game. What do you had? 25 points?
25, yeah.
Yeah.
And anyone on Phoenix being able to provide a morsel of offense can help like swing an entire game. So it just goes to show like how much parity is in the league, and because a lot of these guys are going head to head and kind of eating themselves out. So heading into these matchups, you really have to think about how well, like from a schematic standpoint, do these teams match up, and from a personnel standpoint, which is really fun to watch.
It's been humbling, I would say, to see a lot of these teams who are finding success go to the 7th or 8th guy on the roster and find a guy who will hit an open shot, when ran off the line, can be going downhill to get all the way to the rim, find a soft spot, or make a progressive pass. And just the fact that the Raptors they are not chock full of those guys. There's not a lot of depth in that regard. It's been tough. Blue Jays. They've lost 2 in a row to the Phillies. They get a day off. By the time people are listening to this, there won't be a Jays game. Then they go again, and then it's Yankees. We're going to be there for the Kevin Gausman start, I think.
Yeah.
I saw a stat that, not really a stat, just standings. You know, people overuse the term stat. Standings anyway. They had the 4th best record in the MLB and the 3rd best in the AL East. What do you like? Is that not absurd? Yeah. Why does this have to be the case, man?
No, it's rough. Especially like heading in the mindset. If you think about the last week, you're like, this is really disappointing. They've lost 5? They've lost 6 or 7 out of their last 10, and
7 of their last 10, I believe.
7 out of their last 10. They saw it's been one of the best starts the Blue Jays have ever had, and you're heading.
No, they had their best start ever.
Yes, exactly. And you're heading into these games thinking like, man, we absolutely need to win these games because the Rays are pulling away from us. So it's cool in the sense where you kind of have, like, these games really matter very early just because everybody in the AL East is really good. But I think takeaway, especially from the last week, like this team goes how their starting pitching goes for the most part. You saw heading into the win streak, all 5 of their starters were giving them quality starts. And then heading into the Boston series, none of them gave them quality starts. And they lost all of those games.
Check-in time. Gausman versus Manoah. I think Manoah is going to end up with more wins than Gausman at the end of the year. That's what I think is going to happen, even though there's a huge disparity in performances right now. Gausman gave you 6 innings, only 3 hits, no earned runs, 9 strikeouts. He's sitting at 3.38. Manoah, I believe, is in the high 4s or the low 5s.
Yeah.
How do you feel about our ERA bet at this at this current place?
I was super confident heading into the year. Manoah's a rising star, one of the highest risers in the league. He's improved.
Bro, he's risen. He's a descending star. He got third in Cy Young. Now he's gonna fall off. That's how it works.
Yeah. He's really struggling with his command. And he already wasn't a guy that was gonna blow you away with his stuff. So his command needs to be at the highest plane as possible. He doesn't have like Kevin Gausman's splitter, which is super nasty, and even when he misses, you're gonna swing at it. So for my sake, I'm hoping things turn around, and there's a long season left. So I'm sticking to things.
My fingers are crossed too. Yeah. He's gonna give us another good start versus the Yankees. Yeah. That's what I think happens. Maybe that gets him back on track. That's what we said after last time. But I don't know, man. He's just. You don't want to over-index on the, like, he's a gamer. Like, you don't want to do that too much.
Yeah.
But, like, he seems like competitive. I don't know. The way people look and talk we pay way too much attention to it, but it was true. Manoah never had special. He didn't have special stuff last season.
Yeah.
Like he had good stuff, and he had like that bulldog demeanor, and it's like somehow he translates that into, what through his first 2 seasons he has a 3.2 through his first 50 starts. He has a sub-3 ERA. Like he had the best start as a Blue Jays pitcher since like Dave Stieb, right? Mm-hmm. Even Roy Halladay in one of his first years had an enormous ERA. Manoah looked like he was in the All-Star game, punchies, all that kind of stuff. We'll see if it turns around. I don't know, man. My fingers are crossed. I hope it's still rising star, not descending star.
Tough. Oh.
Definitely tough. Has anybody really impressed you on the hitting side? Brandon Belt, we were cooking him. He is, I think, 4th in the MLB in the amount of pitches he takes per at bat. Like he had a home run today. He's been drawing more walks. He's been pretty good lately.
No, he has been. And the Jays, for this lineup to work, especially if they make the playoffs, they need a left-handed bat.
They're making the playoffs, dude. Don't say if, please. Please.
But yeah, they need a left-handed bat that is going to be impactful, because when you saw in the wild card game, teams are going to say, I'm going to throw a left-handed pitcher because there's 3 right-handers coming back to back to back. And the Jays were one of the worst teams last year at getting left-handed pitchers or getting hits off left-handed pitchers. So for them to make a run, they need Belt and Varsho, especially, who are at the top of the order, to do extremely well to put pressure on teams, bringing in bullpen relievers and also just the starters that they pick.
I love being a lefty myself. A sweet swinging lefty. Ken Griffey is like the god to me. Robinson Cano was the god to me. Even, Adam Lynn didn't have the sauce, but he gave you like over 30 home runs, over 100 RBIs. He had that one season that was crazy. Yeah. I love a sweet swinging lefty, and I still don't think the Blue Jays have it. But if Belt, like his last, I don't know, if today's May 10th, his last, I don't know, 15 to 20 days of baseball has been pretty good.
Yep.
And so if he can just continue that, his stats will actually look pretty good by the end of the season, I believe. Maybe he has a hot streak. I don't know. I also want to see some home runs from Vladdy. I know, like, that's casual fan. I'm doing the same thing that I like when people get snippy at me during, like, the Raptors stuff. I'm like, relax, okay? That's not how it works. I'm like, give me the home runs. I want home runs. But I do. What can I say? I'm a little dinger piggy. That's anything else you want to say? I'm rambling at this point.
No. Hoping by soon that we have an idea of the coach, because I think it's going to, for the Raptors, it's going to define what they're looking for this summer, and that will give me an idea of should I panic or not. So I'm just waiting.
We've been reached out to. A couple interviews, since they're interviewing all the podcasters. JJ, Trey, Samson. Next week, Koulibaly and Sensibo. Drafts. We're talking about prospects. So look forward to that. I'll be talking to quite a few people about draft prospects. One of those people will be Trey. I have to catch up because he watches way more college ball, and Trey was such a sicko for Wembanyama this year. That's why he was tapped in. Koulibaly, like, I wasn't. I didn't even bother with it, but that's the man right there. He loves the draft prospect, so we're talking about him next week.
We're gonna find out. I'm just saying, Wemby might not be the best prospect on his team.
Okay. This guy. That's Tim is listening to this. Anyway. Okay. Any parting shots for the listeners before we get out of here?
Sorry to break it to some of you guys. We weren't beefing. We took a break. More draft content to come along, and looking forward to digging into a lot of that stuff, because the draft, especially when you have a disappointing season like this, the draft is what gives you a lot of hope. And most likely by our next episode, we'll know what pick we have. So I'll really be able to dig into the guys that I should be looking at.
We will.
Yeah,
We
we
will
will.
know by next Tuesday. That's for anybody who's
Oh,
wondering,
shoot.
that's the draft lottery.
Yeah.
We'll be at the Jays game, hanging out when the Raptors get the pick that they end up getting. I guess we'll see. Maybe we'll live stream from the stadium if they get the first overall pick. That's my promise to you. We'll get the insights of all the people sitting around us. I think we'll end up by a bullpen. Maybe we can get like one of the Yankees relievers if they're a big basketball fan to comment, something like that. Okay, that's it. Thanks to everybody for listening. Just thanks for listening all the time. The Pull Up Tray podcast has performed extremely well. I knew Trey was extremely likable. I talked sports with him for years before we started doing a podcast. I'm glad everybody likes him so much and likes our dynamic so much. It's been not a surprise, just welcome. So thanks to everybody for tuning in with us. And yeah, if you got into this on YouTube, like the video. That's good. If you're listening to this on the podcast, keep doing that. And subscribe to RaptorsRepublic.com. If you want to see my prospect writing, that's where it will be. And it will be paywalled as well. And that's why you subscribe. So thanks to everybody for tuning in. It's been an absolute pleasure. If you got into this in the morning or at night, have a blessed day and goodbye.